Hello everybody, we got something a little different today. So, just before I went away to stay with family over Christmas, I decided to do a last minute stream over Discord. I jumped on, a bunch of people joined me actually. I was surprised how many people popped into voice chat to hang out. It was actually kind of nice because I could just sit there and chill with people. With a lot of people in chat, and especially if I'm in the middle of a dogfight, it's very hard for me to actually keep up with what's being said, so quite often chat in the stream gets away from me, and I have trouble keeping up with it. Whereas with Discord, the quality wasn't as good as Twitch, obviously. It was a more limited audience, but I could actually just sit there and chat with my community, which is really pleasant. Anyway, the objective of this was to get in some last-minute evaluations on the Jeff before I went away to visit family over Christmas, because I wasn't sure if the free event would still be running by the time I got back. Now, as it happens, I got back with like a week and change to spare before it ends, so it's not the last flight I'll be doing in it, but it was a nice little opportunity to have a more laid-back stream than usual, and to also kind of put out some of my thoughts about the Jeff and bounce them off members of the community, some of whom own it, some of whom, like Pom, absolutely despise the thing. It was a good little exercise, I think. Now, because I'm recording this from a track file after the fact, you're not going to hear any of the chatter that we had. Unfortunately, there was some enlightening discussion and some good jokes passed around, but I can kind of commentate at least my thoughts on the aircraft, and then as well, once I start switching aircraft and trying different things out against different people, I can commentate that as well. So, the thing is, the Jeff, I don't like the way it flies. I like the way it flies below about 400 to 450 knots. It can pull reasonable angles of attack, about the same as the Mirage, in the 28-30 degree range controllably. It's quite easy to control, even though it's only fly-by-wire and pitch. The roll and yaw stab orgs and the control augmentation equivalent it has makes it quite easy to handle. At speeds below 400 knots, it essentially behaves a lot like the Mirage. It just can't slow down because the air brakes are so small. So, at low speeds, I don't mind the way the Jeff flies, but we're going to come back to this caveat, with a caveat even, in a minute. At speeds above about 450 knots, the Jeff is a pig. It will not turn. I don't know if it's a function of the G limiter. I don't know if it's a function of the aircraft's aerodynamics. I don't know. I just don't know. But above about 450 knots, the Jeff will not turn. You have maybe 2 or 3 G available. Like, it's abysmal. Angle of attack, you can pull even less than the MiG-19. Like, the MiG-19 will at least pull it. It'll just dump its speed to do so. The Jeff won't even pull it. So, at low speeds, it handles nicely. At high speeds, it's horrible. At high speeds, it is probably the worst handling aircraft in the game, and I absolutely despise it. So, as you can probably imagine, I have very conflicted and complex opinions on this thing. We're fighting against a MiG-29 to start with, so by rights, he should actually outperform me in this kind of tight one-circle fight, but again, because the Jeff's not too bad at low speed, I can hang with him. If he accelerated to his corner speed, I would not be able to do shit, but because he's tending to play this slow, I'm actually in with a chance. But here we come to my next problem with the Jeff, the gun sight. Now, you'd think that the Jeff's gun sight would go pretty well with me. Both the snapshot and the snapshot lead computing gun sight modes are very similar to the Mirage's gun snake, which I absolutely love. It may be an unpopular opinion within the DCS community, but I think the Mirage has probably the best gun sight in the game. Certainly the best for, like, ridiculous high-angle snapshots like I take. The Jeff has a similar gun sight, but it has some problems. The guns are... Well, it is a gun. It's a twin-barrel gun. It's the same as the MiG-21, MiG-23, the UPK-23 gun pods. It's a Gesha-23. It's mounted left under the intake, and on top of that, it's canted slightly downwards on the aircraft centerline, so it's really awkward. It doesn't seem harmonized, or I guess it doesn't seem to converge with the gun sight very well. It always seems to shoot low and left, or low and right. It's never quite hitting where you expect it to hit. it's like the gun sight doesn't compensate for the convergence of the gun based on radar ranging data. So I don't know what's going on there, but it's horrible. It's really horrible. The Gashar 23 is a fantastic gun. Like, a lot of people complain about it. I have no problems with that gun. I love that gun on the MiG-21. It's fantastic. But on the Jeff, just because of the way it's mounted, combined with the way that the sight symbology doesn't seem to be synchronized with the gun at all, it's really awful. Here we have a F-86. This should be interesting. So yeah, hitting things with a gun on the Jeff. Now, I know this thing wasn't intended as a BFM monster, so I'm kind of trying to do something it's not really meant to do here, but for me, I'm very much a BFM-oriented pilot. I like the close-in and dirty stuff. It's a lot more fun to me. BVR is A, something I'm bad at, and B, something I don't really enjoy. So, how an aircraft handles directly in, you know, all aspects of flight, low and high speed, low and high angles of attack, whatever, that is the major thing that sells me on a plane, followed by its ability to employ close-range weapons. Now, some aircraft I enjoy don't actually have guns, or, you know, the gun's just not really well-suited to air-to-air at all. You can see there, I tried to play silly games with a Sabre and it didn't work out. But, yeah, I don't know, the Jeff just doesn't quite get there. And you can see me in external view here. I'm trying to demonstrate something. I think I was trying to show the complete lack of pitch authority it has. Or something. No, probably the flight state it's got itself into. I don't know. That is actually something that comes in with the low maneuverability at high speeds, is I noticed that the actual stabs weren't moving much. They were deflecting by a couple of degrees, like 2-3 degrees tops. And I almost wonder if the, whatever the Chinese equivalent of an ARU is, I almost wonder if it's overtuned, so it doesn't give you enough pitch at all, or if that's an aerodynamic phenomenon, maybe like the center of pressure fucks with the control authority somehow. It shouldn't, but you never know with these things. Well, I don't, anyway. It's outside my wheelhouse a bit. So yeah, I wanted to like this jet so badly. Like, I knew I was going to hate the systems, that's fine, but I wanted to like the jet itself really badly, and I just don't. I see why Pom hates it so much. Again, at low speed, it's fine. If it wasn't for the bad gun mounting, it would be perfect. Like, with this snapshot lead computing sight, if we ignore the Etch-a-Sketch bug where it draws like an 80s fucking tech show intro all over your HUD, if we ignore that, the gun sight itself is relatively fine. You can hear me, well, you can see me rather, mousing around the HUD as I was explaining something for the guys on Discord. If the gun was mounted centerline like the MiG-21 or like the Mirage, there'd be no issues. But as you can see here, this is what I was talking about. The gun is offset to the left and it's canted slightly, and it even looks, right here, it even looks like the gun's towed out a couple of degrees from centerline. So it almost looks like it's shooting down and left to begin with. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. If the gun was centerline, it would solve a lot of problems. The Mirage's guns are essentially under the pilot's feet. Right on the centerline, I have no issues aiming them. I can aim those without even thinking. Here you can see me kind of mousing around the exterior. I was kind of marveling at the cost savings that Chengdu went to when they built this jet. The lack of fairings, you know, it's not uncommon for aircraft to have fairings removed just for weight savings, if they're not aerodynamically important, but that exposed mechanism there, kind of, I don't know. And here we have, the thing that makes me marvel is there's no dashboard. The Jeff has no glare shield at all for the back of the instrument panel, and you can imagine this thing's sitting on an airbase in Pakistan. That's its primary user is Pakistan, you know, pretty hot country. You can imagine the fucking shit that's going to go down with the electronics if they're just sitting exposed like that. And I was like, surely not. So I looked it up and I did some poking around the internet. No, sure enough, I found photos of production JF-17s with no glare shield covering the back of the instrument panel. So that is apparently a standard fucking feature, or lack thereof. which really blew my mind. Like, why? You're saving like 500 grams maximum. You know, like not even 5 cents. Why would you not put in a glare shield like every other jet on Earth? You know, it just seems so odd, like an afterthought. There are parts of this jet that are well designed, and there's parts of this jet that are just like so shockingly negligent? Question mark? I don't even know if that's a word. I mean, I know it's an export jet, so Chengdu probably didn't give a fuck, but still, like, it just perplexes me. Here I'm talking about the cockpit visibility. It's actually not bad forwards. The canopy bow is too thick, but if it wasn't for that, there wouldn't be a problem. I'm talking about how the rearwards visibility is poor, but not awful. The canopy actually loses its transparency towards the rear, I guess, because of the static reflections mixed with the lighting, mixed with maybe an attempt to simulate some sort of distortion through the perspex. So your rearwards visibility isn't great. Your sideways visibility to the right side is hampered by this great big, incredibly rusty and or coated in bird shit IFR probe. You can remove this. You tell the ground crew to fuck the thing off, and they will, which is a nice touch. But in circumstances where you can't do that, like on this server, for instance, where it's on by default, it's a pain in the ass because it blocks your visibility out the right side quite badly. Overall, though, visibility is not bad in the Jeff. Like, it's not the best, but it's not awful. One thing I actually did like is the what even would you call it? The canopy shattering cord, the det cord that runs down the center of the canopy to shatter the canopy when you eject. I actually quite like that because it serves as a really useful visual reference for where the waterline sort of / bore axis of the aircraft is. So if I'm coming down through the vertical and someone's on my lift vector, I can tell if they're lined up with my guns or not as I come down. That's a nice touch. Another thing that got me about the Jeff, it's got the diverterless intakes. They're quite well done. You know, it's got the nose looks normal. It's not a bad looking airframe. But then, why does it have these root extensions? If it can't pull high angles of attack, why does it have the works? And then you look at the wing. The trailing edge of this wing is essentially a MiG-21 wing. That is a MiG-21 wing. The constant chord split flap and the tapered aileron, that is a MiG-21 wing. Except they've moved the aileron control crank to the bottom of the wing instead of the top. That's literally a MiG-21 wing, but then they've taken the leading edge and given it more of sort of an F-16 type of contour. So you got... It's a really weird plane, and this is why I wanted to like it so much. It's just one of these weird kind of Chinese Frankenplanes that I actually really kind of like the look of. You've got bits of an F-16 and bits of a MiG-21 kind of smushed together, all with a MiG-29 engine. It could be really interesting, but God, I just hate flying it. So I was just kind of explaining to the stream here about the wing. You know, to me, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, holy shit, that's a MiG-21 wing. But again, the leading edge has been changed. There's a slight double, or very slight double delta just at the halfway point. You might not even be able to make it out, but I just can, where the slats separate, the two slat sections. The slats themselves look like they're kind of off the F-16. And then you've got this different sweep on the leading edge. I'm not sure what angle that is. I'd make that probably about 50 degrees. If that, 45, 50 degrees maybe. Could even be 40. I'm kind of bad at eyeballing angles, but it's certainly not 62 like the MiG-21's wing. You know, overall the shape of the aircraft, it's not a bad looking plane. It really isn't a bad looking plane, honestly. But it handles like a dog. Now, I should point out, this isn't really a criticism of the module. This is, you know, Decker modeled the aircraft, and these are actual, I assume, disadvantages of the real aircraft. I don't know how good their data is. Obviously, you know, it's kind of sketchy for any Western sources to get info on Chinese-built aircraft, even export aircraft. But assuming they modeled this accurately, you know, these aren't complaints with the module. These are complaints with the actual aircraft. The cockpit layout, it looks like a fucking home built. The layout could be worse, but it really does give off those home built vibes. And some of the things are just in the most random places, like the adjustment knob for the baro altimeter is in just the most random place. So, as I spawn in here, let's talk about the gun loading process. On the MiG-21, you press a button to cock the gun. Here you have to press gun, wait for it to stop flashing, then press feed and wait for it to stop flashing. There is a tangible delay of about 2-3 seconds between each of those presses. If you press it quicker, the gun just won't cock, which is a mistake I made several times, and it caught me out. So that is definitely suboptimal, shall we put it. I don't know why they made it that difficult to cock the gun when on the 21 just a single button will do it. Here we have me demonstrating the sweet retro effect that the snapshot lead computing site draws, which I'm pretty sure is unintentional. I think that's a bug, but who knows, maybe the real plane does that. I was so busy playing around with my Etch-a-Sketch that I almost lost sight of my opponent here. Now, I can't remember who I was fighting for each of these fights, and because this is a track file, I can't just open the scoreboard to check. But suffice to say, at various points I was fighting Sabre, Polar, Yellow Fox, and I think that was it. Someone else may have jumped in too. I can't remember. There were a lot of people in the Discord call. It was actually pretty sweet. So I've lost sight again here. Visibility, again, it's not great, but I've seen worse. There we go. There's our baddie. I dump all my speed over the vertical to try and get some maneuverability back, knowing that the Jeff won't be able to point its nose with any speed on. I think that's another Jeff, it looks like, which would probably mean I was fighting Sabre at this point. I think all my Jeff versus Jeff fights were against Sabre. You can see me pulling for all I'm worth here. Narrowly got away with that one. I overdid that with the rudder. It doesn't handle 100% like the Mirage. It's only fly-by-wire in the pitch channel, so it's not as idiot-proof as the Mirage, but it's pretty stable. I guess maybe a more valid comparison would be the way the DCS F-15 handles it. Low speed and high angles of attack. That would probably be a better comparison for the Jeff in those conditions. So you can see here, put about 4G. I can pull up to 20 odd degrees AOA without too much trouble. But as I build speed, that's going to drop away quite quickly. I'm trying to pull for one of those silly lead shots I take in the Mirage here, but because I don't have the confidence in the Jeff's gun sight, I just couldn't really make it work. I'm also kind of surprised just how low-res the mirrors are. I'm not sure what controls that, like if different devs use different shaders for the mirrors, or if it's just a matter of how zoomed in or zoomed out the render target camera is, like whether it has a narrow or wide field of view. That was a F5, actually. I stand corrected. So yeah, I'm not sure what causes that, but some modules have clearer mirrors than others. The Jeffs are quite poor. You may be able to hear thunder in the background at the moment. I am making a brilliant life choice and recording this during a major storm, because why not? So here you can see, as well as cocking and loading the gun, I've got to get rid of the burst limiter, just because the burst limiter makes my life even more difficult. Now, I haven't done any BVR whatsoever with this, haven't tried the smart air-to-ground weapons, nothing. I don't even really have the radar bound up. I just took it out for some dogfighting, because to me, if I don't like the way an aircraft handles in BFM, I'm not going to like the aircraft at any other point either. Like, you guys know how long it took me to warm up to the MiG-19, and I think this is... I mean, this could potentially end up growing on me, but I very much doubt it. I don't think I'm going to buy it. It's a nice module. Deca have done a lot of really impressive stuff with it, although there's still some things that really need attention. But yeah, I don't know. It might be one of those modules I trot out every time there's a free trial event, and just wait until eventually I kind of click with it and decide that I do like it. But until then, I think it's a no, honestly. So we're fighting another MiG-29 here. I just can't quite pull the nose as much as I want. Again, it's worth noting that the Jeff is powered by a single RD-93, which is a modernized version of the RD-33, which the MiG-29 has two of. I notice he's pointing his nose here, so this is super dangerous for me. I just try and get out of plane with it, then roll around so he can't hit me. I'm getting quite slow here. The Jeff tends to kind of start pancaking out around 200 knots, it seems. I say pancaking, it doesn't actually stall at 200, but it starts to really, it loses its available G, put it that way. You don't have much available pull to you at that speed. Right around 250, 300, somewhere in that range is where it seems to be quite happy. 350 is not bad, but like I said, once you go above about 400, 450 in that area, it just really doesn't turn. It has no available G whatsoever. It's a really sudden transition too. Now the MiG-29 has some funky behavior going on with its G limiter, but not quite as funky as the Jeff. The MiG-29 kind of has a specific region around sort of the transition between transonic and supersonic flight where you really get your available G cut to very, very little. But you adjust to that in the MiG-29, you learn to adjust to that. In the Jeff, it's very much a sudden transition from, oh, I can't pull, to, oh, now I can pull too much. It's almost like when the ARU in the MiG-21 was broken, it's almost like that. It goes basically from... It's all or nothing, pretty much, it feels like. I have experimented with disabling different channels of the flight control system. I tried disabling the staborgs, I tried various combinations thereof. Actually, taking off the flight assists seems to make it handle even worse. And I don't mean like it starts to get stally or spinny like you would expect. I mean it literally can't pull the angles that it could beforehand, which is confounding to me, absolutely confounding. And if that is an attribute of the real aircraft, then holy fuck, that's certainly unique. I'll give it that. We'll just leave it at unique. I don't want to offend anyone too badly. You can see I am getting consistent shots on people, but it's taking me a long time, and I'm kind of struggling in a lot of places. And also, a lot of these guys aren't as familiar with the MiG-29 as I am, so, you know, me fighting a MiG-29 and a Jeff is kind of not fair. It's like them fighting, like Sabre fighting with an F-16 against me and, I don't know, a Tomcat or something. Like, it's kind of decided before the fight. Man, I just sounded really up myself there. I don't mean to say I'm, like, amazing. I just mean to say these guys don't have the hours in the 29 I do. So they're one-circling a lot when they shouldn't be. The 29 can one-circle quite well, but yeah, you kind of... There's a PL5 in frustration, because I was out of gun at this point. You can one-circle on the 29, but you kind of don't want to unless you know you can get away with it. The 29's actually a great two-circle fighter like the Viper is, so I always try and two-circle in it. There's my second PL5, because I was well and truly out of gun. This is on MoBetterMeta's Dogfight server, which I've noticed has very little issues with ping warping, at least that I saw over the 2 days I've been playing on there. I did see it briefly, just very subtly once when I was fighting Yellow Fox, but other than that, it was a nice lag-free experience, much unlike Just Dogfight. The issue is where he set this range up, kind of up around Crimea, northwest of Kerch. there's a lot of Z fighting between the water and the islands, which is a bit off-putting. See, I'm playing with my gun sight again. And then I missed the merge because I was too busy paying attention to that and not what I should have been paying attention to. There we go. There's the merge. Up we go. Now, something else to note about the Jeff. I've said that it can't turn at high speed. The problem is it likes being fast. It has quite a powerful engine and it's quite a small, light airframe. Now, when you add those two things together, you want some very effective air brakes to bleed off that speed. It does not have very effective air brakes. It has 4 small sort of cruciform pedals that come out 45 degrees off the airframe. Same as the Sukhoi interceptors or the MiG-23, same sort of thing. 4 smallish air brakes on the rear fuselage. The problem is on the Jeff, they're too small. They're way too small. They have almost no effect. They're absolute fucking garbage. Totally useless. So it kind of takes the one positive thing it could have had, which is a lot of thrust, but also the ability to stop on a dime, and it throws it out the window. You can brake pretty effectively by just pulling the nose once you get slow, but you have to be slow to be able to pull the nose. Like, I'm pulling as hard as I can here. I am actually getting 8G. I am actually getting 8G, but I'm only getting 8 degrees AOA, which is not a whole lot. I don't know, maybe it's... I almost feel like it's confirmation bias, just because I'm so spoilt from the Mirage, or something. Or maybe it's because the Jeff pilot has a custom physiology model where he can sustain 8G without issues, but I just always felt in the Jeff at high speed like I couldn't turn as well as I could in anything else I fly. Maybe that's substantiated, maybe it's just one of those feelings that is actually not correct. You know, it's not supported by the numbers, but to me, it felt like I couldn't pull. I guess it'll all come out when I check the TAC view later. And this is the thing too, I mean, pilot impressions and technical data often don't match, but when it comes to me trying to decide which DCS modules I'm going to enjoy and which ones I want to buy, first impressions count for a lot more than the hard data. So if I feel like I can't turn, it means I'm probably not going to want to fly the module. Whereas certain modules where, for instance, a MiG-21, I feel like I can turn on a dime in that thing, but if you actually look at the numbers, yeah, the turn radius is good, but the turn rate's worse than an F5. You know, when I'm pulling that fucking bullshit edge of stall 32, 33 AOA nonsense, I'm only doing like 10, 12 degrees a second. The F5 sustains at like 13.5, 14. So the F5 will handily outrate me. I just feel like I'm turning really fast because, you know, the nose is cranking around quite quickly on my screen. Just one of those things, I guess. But because I ended up fighting the aircraft, trying to get nose authority here for shots, it took me so much longer to get kills than I thought it should. You know, a lot of these fights would have been over much, much quicker in the Mirage. Hell, some of them would have been over quicker in the MiG-21, I feel, but in the Jeff, it wasn't happening. So let's actually take a moment to talk about the avionics. So for those who know me well, you'll know that I hate MFDs and I hate US Air Force ergonomics even more. So the fact this is laid out with US Air Force style tapes, the fact that it's got 3 big MFDs, I really dislike that. I really, really dislike that. I get why they did it, because the Pakistani Air Force was previously operating F-16As, so they wanted something that was relatively easy to transition to, but for me it's uncomfortable. I don't really like it. Fingers crossed my power doesn't go out. I'm sure I just jinxed myself by saying that, but I think I'm recording in a format that will corrupt if the recording's interrupted, so I may need to re-record this, we'll see. I might actually pause it and break it into chunks after every couple fights. So after this fight, I might just briefly pause it, cut the video, and then I can stitch it together later, just in case. Again, the forwards visibility on the Jeff isn't bad, except for this really fat canopy arch. I don't know why the canopy arch needs to be that fat, but there you go. You do actually have sunshades for the instrument panel, but you don't have, again, you don't have that glare shield behind it, you know, to keep the sun off the electronics, because direct sunlight, tropical conditions, and or desert conditions in parts of the country, and that was close, and sensitive electronics are notoriously well suited for each other's company. So you can see here what I was talking about with that line of det cord. I can use that to line up the nose on people. It's a handy visual reference because in DCS we obviously don't have the feel of having your ass in the seat, so every little visual reference helps. Fighting an F-14 here. I can't remember if this was a B or an A. And as you can imagine, the 14 just easily outturns me at low speed without really even trying. But I do see a chance here. Just trying to line up the guns for it, and I couldn't quite get the nose where I needed it. Just could not quite get it. If I was a little more ahead of the aircraft with my stick and rudder inputs, I might have had a chance there, but it's not quick enough. Potentially got another chance here. I'm cashing in what airspeed I can for angles. I've got them, I think, but I don't trust this gun sight, and the gun wasn't fed because I didn't wait for the delay. This is what I mean. You've got to wait like 2 or 3 seconds between pressing the buttons or it doesn't fucking load it. It's really bad design. I don't know why it's like that. But I've got the Tomcats slowly reversing in front of me, which at least lets me have a do-over as far as that shot's concerned. And we finally put the finisher in there. Take off a wing and a stab. That was a hard fight. This thing's really not going to have a pleasant time against F-14s. Even the A, let alone the B. Quickly pause this here, briefly cut the video, just in case.